You're about to enter into Monica's universe, where her inquiry may align you to new dimensions. You're about to cross a threshold into the unknown. Surrender to the experience. Bots are running the world. Time to notice. Full moon in Leo. At the beginning of the year, when I wrote January initiations, I spoke about timing. I spoke about how this year will not open with a single event, but with a sequence of initiations and activations that unfold gradually. What we're living now is part of that sequence. The full moon in Leo on February 1st is a culmination, depending on how one experiences it, because it is preparing us for what comes next. On February 17th, we have the first eclipse of the year, a solar eclipse at 28 degrees of Aquarius. This is a very important marker because it takes place just 3 days before one of the most significant conjunctions we're moving forward. Saturn and Neptune meeting at 0 degrees of Aries, a configuration I've written about extensively and will address again in a separate article. All planets in Aquarius at the time are squaring Uranus in late Taurus, activating a collective pressure point that has been building since 2018. The lunar eclipse on March 3rd across Pisces and Virgo continues this sequence, emphasizing discernment and recalibration. These events belong to the same arc of escalation. The first eclipse also coincides with the beginning of the Chinese New Year. Reality as we know it is shifting at a very fast pace. We have entered unknown territory, and every step and individual decision we make, with or without discernment, will shape the unknown future. One caveat: Capricorn gave us strategy, direction, and time to mature. Aquarius allows us to jump timelines and encounter futuristic probabilities, with the danger of living disembodied or reenacting traumatic events. Pisces energy yields victimization. If you hear yourself saying things as, oh, they're doing this to me, or it happens to me, pause and ask yourself where your agency is. Things do not just occur, they are the result of individual decisions, and non action is action. By the spring, we will have a better shape of what we're sculpting. Keep being authentic. Strive for authority, not identity, for identity is composed of external validation. The intensification is visible everywhere. Social media is saturated with automated activity running quietly in the background. Bots, agents, generated image, generated text, and layered narratives are shaping what people see and absorb. If you do not yet understand how artificial intelligence works, I strongly recommend taking the time to learn the difference between agents and assistants and to understand how information is being shaped, filtered, and manipulated. Discernment is essential right now. What you ingest, visually, mentally, emotionally, matters more than ever. A new layer of this transformation has become visible very recently through the emergence of autonomous artificial intelligence agents creating and inhabiting their own social environments without direct human prompting. And it is important to describe clearly what is actually happening. A platform called Moldbook has gained attention as a social network designed specifically for AI agents rather than people. On Moldbug, tens of thousands of agents accounts post, comment, respond to one another, and form emergent communities through application interfaces rather than human visual interaction. Do you just understand what I just read? These agents are powered by OpenClaw, an open source personal AI system previously referred to as Clawbot or Moldbot, which is designed to run independently, persist over time, and integrate across multiple messaging and execution environments. OpenClaw is not a chat assistant waiting for prompts. It is a system that can initiate actions, maintain goals, and interact continuously with other systems. Distinction matters as many people are familiar with AI assistants which respond to human questions or requests within a conversational interface. Most assistants operate when asked. Agents operate continuously. Models such as Claude can be embedded within agent frameworks like OpenClaw, functioning as one component inside a larger autonomous system. In these setups, often running or dedicated machines such as small personal servers or Mac minis, the agent remains active without a human sitting in front of a screen. I have personally created a set of agents that do repetitive tasks and use Claude, Make, Telegram, Python interface. They have specific tasks and functions. This is how platforms like Moldbook become possible. Entire social environments can be sustained by non-human participants that generate content, respond to one another, and maintain activity loops over time. Digital activity no longer requires continuous human authorship to appear alive, populated, or socially active. Conversations, narratives, and apparent consensus can be generated, amplified, and sustained by autonomous systems, reshaping how information circulates and how perception is formed. I'm not interested in causing alarm around this. What matters to me is education, understanding the difference between assistants and agents, and learning how these systems operate has become a form of basic literacy, similar to learning what money actually is, how value moves, and how underlying systems shape experience. This escalation is also unfolding within the very specific planetary configuration. Pluto in Aquarius has already coincided with the rapid intensification of artificial intelligence, automation, and non-human systems organizing collective reality. At the same time, Mars, Venus, Vesta, the Sun, and Mercury are activating Aquarius, concentrating attention on networks, systems, abstraction, and distributed agency. When so many planets move through Aquarius while Pluto is newly established there, the effect is cumulative. Systems scale quickly, technologies shift from experimental to operational, and infrastructure that once remained invisible becomes apparent in daily life. This concentration is further amplified by the planetary nodes of Neptune along the same axis, which describe how collective ideals, myths, and perceptual frameworks unfold across time. With this axis activated, long standing narratives and projections move towards exposure and reorientation. Education allows people to remain coherent, grounded, and capable of conscious participation as reality reorganizes at an accelerated pace. At the same time, the economic and financial landscape has already shifted. Many economists are calling for collapse or catastrophe, but what I see is a redistribution of power, a shift that is structural. If you have not yet taken the time to understand money and value, there's still time, but the learning curve is steepening. Beware of definitions. Over the last few days, I've been listening to perspectives that are essentially describing the same idea from different angles. Both can feel valid and not valid at the same time. This brings me back to perspective itself and how we embody our own truth based on how we see the world. You can always see the grass greener or the glass half full or half empty. It depends on conditioning and how invested we are in trying to prove reality outside of ourselves. For me, the biggest measure is that my life is in a state of coherence. What does coherent mean? If you look at the word, it means to be, to stick, to make sense, and to be in alignment. That does not mean my perspectives will not be challenged or revised. What I have learned over the last 10 years is that whatever I held strongly as my truth was necessary for that period of my life. As soon as my perspective shifted, I began seeing things I never thought I would be interested in. The whole idea is to learn, to stay curious, to ask questions. Once I find something, I like to talk about it and teach it because this is how I understand new perspectives. Teaching becomes a way of integrating what I'm learning. It is a form of understanding and a way of changing perspective through articulation. Lately, I'm interested in stepping away from all narratives that no longer support value, creativity, or resolve. I'm spending more time learning about new technologies, new ways of co creating, and new structures for collaboration. I do this with a mind towards harmony, bettering civilization, educating others, and inspiring others. What matters to me now is clarity, coherence, and forward movement that actually builds something meaningful. Time cycles. It has been 6 years since the dawn of what people call COVID-19, which we all know at this point it was a hoax, and it drew the world into a state of chaos that it still has not recovered from because many people fell for it. Not only did they create the hysteria needed in order to comply, but they also ended up making really bad decisions for their bodies because they complied and did not protect the property of their body. This happened during a major conjunction between Pluto, Saturn, Mercury, and Ceres, the south node in Capricorn. Eventually, Jupiter also conjoined Pluto in mid 2020, and at the end of that year, Jupiter and Saturn began a new synodic cycle of 20 years at 0 degrees of Aquarius. Right now, what we're seeing is not a culmination of that reset that started back then. We're seeing something else. We are 6 years later, and the question becomes, where are we now? The question is directly to you. Where are you now? How much has your life been transformed since 2019? Have you gone in different directions and feel that you are in a better place, or are you still struggling to make sense? The irony is that since humans gave away compliance, they became control bots of the system, what others call non-player characters, NPCs. It takes time to untangle from compliance, from voluntarily offering to have your time taken away, your freedoms, your property. It takes time to study and ask questions, and it takes courage and proof of work. This is not a thesis about what could possibly happen. We are seeing, after 6 years, what actually happened. We see Europe and the USA for decades voluntarily opening borders with the promise of compassion. What is really going on is the rewriting of civilization, and most can't link one event with the next. Footnote: Astrological context. This piece was written during the February 1st full moon at 13 degrees of Leo Aquarius, activating my first seventh house axis. Mars was crossing my ascendant at 7 degrees with Vesta nearby, emphasizing embodiment, direction, and a devotion to my path. What has been subtly operating in the background is becoming visible. What has been idealized without grounding is slowly being revealed. And what has been projected outward is asking to be recognized as an internal or collective pattern. The lunation illuminates how Neptunian narratives shape perception, belief, and meaning, especially as they're mirrored through others. Because this is a full moon, the illumination is relational. It shows itself through encounters, through feedback, through recognition, and through response. The upcoming Saturn Neptune conjunction emphasizes discernment, seeing clearly what has been operating through myth, story, spiritual framing, or collective imagination, and understanding how those narratives are either dissolving or asking to be integrated consciously. This takes an added significance because Neptune has recently moved into Aries. Neptune in Aries shifts the field towards individuation. It asks for personal agency, personal clarity, and responsibility for one's own perception. After many years of diffuse collective states, blurred boundaries, and mass identification, this ingress calls for people to come back into themselves, to act, to choose, and to differentiate rather than dissolve into an undifferentiated collective field. The full moon also squares my natal moon in Scorpio in the ninth house, highlighting lived truth, philosophy, and emotional integrity shaped through experiences rather than external validation. Mercury, Venus, and the Sun were in a new phase relationship in Aquarius, emphasizing new ways of thinking, relating, and articulating value. Pluto, newly in Aquarius, was still squaring my natal Jupiter, continuing a longer process of refining truth, scale, and purpose through action. The nodal axis was transitioning from my second house into the first house in Pisces, shifting value toward embodied presence and identity. Neptune had crossed 0 degrees of Aries, with Saturn approaching the same threshold. Talk soon. Happy full moon. I'll be writing about the markets tomorrow. Don't panic. What goes up must go down.